Well, good morning or good afternoon, good evening, perhaps. My name is Michael Hilkemeyer from ICT eSolutions Australia. It's my absolute pleasure and privilege to introduce you to Jane Bathem. She is a PhD candidate with the University of Southern Queensland now, because I know it's changed a couple of things. And she is doing a study at the moment on developing positive STEM mindsets for primary school teachers. So welcome, to this presentation, and I'm going to leave it in your hands now, Jane, to sort of maybe explain a bit more about who you are and what you're doing. So take it away.
Yeah, okay, thank you very much. So my name's Jane. I am currently studying my PhD. So my background is that I am a primary classroom teacher, and I have always loved STEM and loved, bringing in technology into my classroom and maths and science. But I think what I'm really aware of through the roles that I've had as a classroom teacher and then in specialist and support roles is that not everybody feels that way. So I'm I first got interested in to see, well, why do some people, approach STEM as this really exciting, amazing thing, and then other people are quite, quite scared of it, really. And so that's sort of where my thinking started. And then the more that I read about it, the more that I realized that like maths anxiety and science anxiety particularly are really very common, and very much so in primary school teachers. So, and the impact of those anxieties on students is really terrible as well. So if as a classroom teacher, if we have an aversion to these things, we actually end up tending to pass that on, and particularly female teachers pass it along to girls. So that's why I thought it was critical to understand how we can develop more positive STEM mindsets for classroom teachers so that we can support the teachers to not feel scared of something that I love. So, I'd love for everybody to feel as passionate about it as I do. But then also, how can we also help children? Because that's kind of what we're all in the business for in the end, is to see how we can have a positive impact on children. So, what we do in the early childhood classrooms is absolutely critical to laying the foundations for what students will do further on. And we've got this really great opportunity to tap into the really innate curiosity of young children and to inspire them to want to be really interested in it. Or that's if it goes well. Otherwise, it's actually a chance where we could actually turn them off and then close some of those doors. And it's way too early to be closing doors to students' futures. So so that's basically what my research is about, is trying to see, well, how can we get people to become more positive about that? And the way that I'm going to go around about doing that is to find people who've already been able to overcome that challenge. So I know that there are teachers out there who initially may have actually suffered from science anxiety or maths anxiety, because they're like really quite common, particularly maths anxiety. A lot of people go, I'm just not a maths person, and they have that fear, or being asked to calculate something. If you think you've got to work something out, and you get so nervous that your brain actually, like now the neuroscience is showing that if you are thinking about being nervous about being able to calculate something, then you actually can't calculate it, because your working memory is not working the way that it should be because of the anxiety. So how can we get teachers who have had those and then actually have overcome that and are now trying to do STEM in their classroom? So, I'm not looking for people who are doing it perfectly. I don't think any of us are doing it perfectly. Anybody who's doing it knows that that's part of it, is learning as you go and always getting better at what we're doing. So I'm not looking for people who are, are perfect. I'm looking at people who have been able to overcome that challenge and are now giving it a go. Ideally, I'm looking for people who are in the primary, like in the classroom, who are classroom teachers, because I think that part of the beauty of being in the early childhood classroom or in the primary school classroom is that relationship that we have with the students, and that ability to be able to make connections between all of the different subjects and to truly integrate the learning in. So we're bringing in literacy and things as well as all of the STEM things and bringing it all together for the students. Although I know that some people who are now specialist teachers may have been on that journey. So they might have started off as a classroom teacher, and then as they've become more confident with STEM, someone's tapped them on the shoulder and they've been taken out of the classroom. So yeah, so that's what I'm looking for.
Great. So can you tell us a bit more about what are the issues that primary teachers face? Like you've discussed a few of them there. Could you perhaps maybe broaden, elaborate a little bit more on those and explain what are the common issues and what are the steps that primary teachers can take to be able to jump those hurdles today?
Yeah, so I think one of the funny things is, I don't know if it's funny or it's just annoying, but it tends to be this cycle kind of thing. So depending on your mindset around STEM, is that there are so many reasons not to do STEM in the primary classroom, because because we're busy trying to do all these other things. It's hard. We're not confident with science, technologies, and mathematics if we haven't been trained in that. You might think we haven't got time to do it. We haven't got the equipment that we need. We don't have the funding that we need. We can come up with so many reasons why, and so many challenges to it. But the thing is that once you have that positive mindset and you can see how important it is, those things, the research shows that those things are no longer the hurdles. If we can change our mindsets around it, then we will overcome those things. So there'll be, you will find the resources, you will find the time, you'll find the money, you'll find, you'll be pulling in all sorts of things. And it's amazing what you can do out of, a few bits of recycled stuff, asking someone for some help, having a look on the internet for some ideas. But to me, that mindsets thing is really what drives it. So that's why I think I'm really keen on, on the mindset aspect of it, because, we can come up with a million reasons not to do it.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's, the research really does show that if all those external barriers are really very difficult to overcome if you haven't overcome the internal barriers. And those internal barriers are the ways that we see it and whether we believe it's important, because teachers are pretty amazing. And if they really want it to happen, then they can make things happen. If they think it's the best thing for their students, it will happen. So it's, working out how we can actually change that. And that's what I'm hoping, if I can hear the stories of people who have been able to change their mindsets, that might help us to know, because I don't know yet. I'm hoping to know.
Yeah.
I don't know, how do we change mindsets? How do we take someone who is, really concerned about STEM and nervous about teaching that, and then they become an advocate for it? How do they get from, so the analogy that I'm going to be using, the framework that I'm using in my study, is called the CBAM framework, which is the concerns-based adoption model. And that model uses a bridge as an analogy for the journey. So when we start off on any journey of change, so this sort of applies to, changing anything or introducing anything into teaching or anywhere, there's stages before we even get onto the bridge. So actually, I've got a slide for that. Give me a minute and I'll find the right slide. So before we even get onto the bridge, there's a whole bunch of work that we do where we're, just looking around and going, wow, that person's doing that thing. I wonder what that is. And that just, starting to get interested in it and realizing that we don't, the stuff that we don't know, and getting prepared for it. You might spend a whole bunch of time looking on the internet, reading people's blogs, looking on Pinterest, listening to podcasts, just in that preparation stage, and just starting to go, oh, okay. And then when you finally go, okay, this is me, I am going to start on this journey, I am going to try to get across the bridge, then there's like a bunch of preparation that you need to do, because you're going to have to go and do a whole heap of learning. And I think that's another one of the challenges, is you've got to be a little bit self-starting to actually want to take on that learning, because most most of the time you're not going to get funded to do it. And no one's going to say, you know, you should, here's some money, here's some time off to go and learn something new.
Yeah.
Then once we start, so we get onto the bridge, and you'll know that anytime you start with something new in the classroom, the first bit is all about the equipment, and it's really mechanical, and it's just like, how do I actually get this thing to work? And so it's kind of lockstep, and you're following a recipe, you're copying off what someone else has done, or you're trying something, and most of the time it doesn't work, and then it's frustrating, and then it's easy to get back off the bridge and go, and again, this is where the mindset thing comes in. I think if we don't have a positive mindset and a growth mindset and a belief that this is actually worth it, there's so many times we could just turn around and go back and not get across the bridge.
Yeah.
So, but once we do, if we keep working, we get stuff to work, you worked out how to connect it, and it's all happening. We get to a point where we're really comfortable. So we're on the bridge and we're doing it, and we get into a routine and we go, well, it's working. I am doing this thing now. So I am teaching STEM, and I have this unit and I do this unit, and I've done it every year for the last 10 years now, and it's working. So, and there's another point where we can get stuck, because we can just go, it's working. If it isn't broken, why are we trying to fix it?
Yeah.
Hopefully, where we want to get is to the other side of the bridge. So if we get to the other side of the bridge, we start to become less focused on ourselves as the teacher and how are we getting this thing to work and what am I doing as the teacher, but what impact is this having on my students? How is this useful to my students, and how can I make it even better? And to me, that's always been the inspiring part of teaching, is wanting to make it better for the kids. So thinking about the impact on them, and then thinking about how can I improve? So where can I go? How can I get help from somebody else and make that even better than what I'm doing? Yeah. So it's that's the journey. And I think if you think of anything that you've tried to introduce, even if it's a reading program, or it doesn't even have to be about technology, we do go through those stages. So we go from hearing about it to then finding out some more about it, getting ready to do it, trying it, and that bit's really, really hard. And then once we get past that bit, then hopefully we can get to that other side, which I think sometimes we get stuck on the bridge or run away and go back. But to get to that point where we go, okay, this is working, this is great, this is really good for my kids, how can I make it even better? And that's that creative, positive energy that we get. Like when you talk to teachers who are on the other side of the bridge, they're really passionate about what they're doing, and they're really enthusiastic and just want to tell everybody about it. So so I'm looking for teachers who have been able to make that journey and would be happy to share that story with me, so that we can have a look and see, well, at each of those different points along the way, when you could have given up and turned back, what was it that helped you to keep going?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think if you are in that, any of see yourself anywhere within this sort of level of, capability of crossing the bridge, as Jane said, it's, I think any sort of participation in this area, would be absolutely vital. What do you think though, Jane? Like, we spoke a little bit about beforehand about the two maybe different types of STEM educators in primary classroom before. I think like there was the specialist teachers, those schools that can bring in and hire those specialist people, and then there's those schools that maybe are not in the same boat and say, well, you've been teaching, maths and, a bit of technology in the past, where do you feel like, the two different types of teachers that you might that you might sort of come across in your study, what do you feel like they might be in this journey in terms of getting over to those new practices?
Yeah, so I think that some schools have brought in that specialist model, and they have a specialist teacher, and they might be a person who's trained, or they might be someone who's, not trained, they're sort of self-learned because they could see that STEM was something that was of value, and they've put in a lot of effort, themselves, and, been able to get themselves across the bridge. So you've either got that model, or there's people who are actually doing things in their classroom. And I think, to me, that's the bit that I think is most exciting, because the benefit of being a primary classroom teacher or in early childhood is that relationship that you have with your own students. And when you really know the students, you can tap into their interests, and you can take the curriculum, which is kind of set, but it's actually quite flexible. And you're able to take that, and you're able to work out how can you really engage your students in that, because you know the students and you know what's possible for them, rather than, I think sometimes, like, I've been a specialist teacher in a few different iterations of my career, and sometimes it feels like you've planned this great lesson, but it's like it's all about the lesson. It's really about the teacher, and I'm going to do this thing because it's going to be really cool, and you're kind of doing it to the kids rather than doing it with them. When I've had the pleasure of being a classroom teacher and been able to do it with the students, then I have particular students in mind. I go, oh, this child's mentioned this thing, or I know that this kid's really interested in this, and you're able to actually bring in their interests and bring them along on the journey as well, which to me is more rewarding than sort of coming in and doing, like, I can do I can do a fancy program and get all the kids excited and stuff in that moment, and it's like this little half an hour thing, but you miss the richness of those relationships, and then being able to make the connections for the students to the where this fits in with the other learning that they're doing. And I think that's the gift of being a primary classroom teacher or an early childhood classroom teacher, is how much time we actually have with the students, so that we really do know them and know them on their journey. But unfortunately, so many schools have realized that the teachers that are in the classrooms don't have time to go and learn how to do all these things. They have maths aversion, they have science aversion, they don't have the background of that. So trying to get somebody who's averse to doing this to actually do it is really, really hard, hence my research. So the solution is to get someone else in to do it. The sad thing for those teachers, though, those classroom teachers, is that bringing in a specialist doesn't help them to overcome that, doesn't help them to feel more confident about it, doing it. And then sometimes it's actually really disempowering for the classroom teachers, because they see someone else is able to do it and just think, I can never do that. Where I believe they can. I believe any primary classroom teacher can teach STEM. It's just hard. It's hard to get. So,
So that, like, when you say that, I mean, I guess it's it's, I think, in terms of primary teaching, the newer generation of teachers coming through, the younger ones, are more sort of expected to maybe take on this sort of role, because of being assumed to be more tech savvy than the old generation teachers. What sort of, like, if they were to participate in this study, what sort of questions would you sort of like propose to them to sort of gather the data that you are after?
Yeah, so one of the things that I'm interested in is trying to define STEM mindsets. So the term has been used in the literature a little bit, but it's not been used a lot. So there's not really a great definition for it. So I'm hoping that part of the first part of what I'll do is actually work out what is a STEM mindset, because I'm saying we should all have a STEM mindset, but what is that? And I think teachers need to be part of that story about defining that as well. So that will be one of the things that I will talk to people about as well. What do they think STEM mindset is, and and how do you get one? So that's sort of some of the more specific questions. But the technique that I'm using is called a narrative inquiry. And so it's really about telling a story. So what I'll be asking people is to share their story, share your story about STEM and your journey with that. And it could include, like, when you went to school and there might have been some great things that happened. There might be some things that happened that weren't so great. You might not remember much of your science because it was so boring. You sort of just blanked it out. Like, so like, what was your experience as a child of STEM? Did that ever happen, or was it disjointed, or, and then through your training as a teacher, like through the pre-service training, like how did that change the way that you saw it at all? Was that positive, negative, and then in your early career, and then sort of wherever you're up to in your career, sort of so it's really about telling a story. So really the question is, tell me a story about STEM, and really trying to listen. So my job will be to listen to the story. So the first interview that I'll do will be quite open-ended, because it really depends on where that journey, it's me listening to the journey. Then there will be some follow-up interviews, because I'll need to go back then and have a look. So once I've been able to listen to the journey and to see that, I want to work out where those different points are and see if the person's journey does match up with this framework. So this change framework, which, and where were they on there? Did they just go straight across the bridge, or maybe they went back and forward? Maybe there were some setbacks and things like that. And then, so the second interview will be more focused questions based on the story that they've told, and then thinking, okay, at that particular point when this thing happened to you, what were the things that helped you to move forward, or what were the challenges, or what were you feeling at that time, so that we can kind of then, dig down deeper. And then the final interview, because of the narrative inquiry, the story actually gets retold as a story. So I'll be, building people's stories and writing them, taking what they've told me and then sort of writing it as a story of what's happened to somebody. So then the third one will be then just checking. So just checking to make sure that the way that I've retold the story honors the actual story, and I haven't gone off on a tangent or misinterpreted something. So so it's quite kind of, there's not little set questions that I'm going to ask people. It really is quite open-ended and depends on their journey.
Okay. So how long do you anticipate your study to go for? Like, what is the duration time that you've set for it?
Yeah. So I'm hoping to do all the interviews this semester. So that's why, because that kind of suits my schedule, gives me time then to do the writing part of it over the next couple of years. Yep. So the first interview, I would suspect, would probably take about an hour for someone to be able to tell me their story, and then there'll be a couple of weeks break for me to go through that and to then work out what the next, where do I need to go back, and then the 2 follow-up interviews will be within this semester is my hope. I'm also really keen to be able to go and visit people at their school. So hopefully to do at least one of the interviews, probably the first one, like within the school, because I think that's part of the story. Like, stories always have a context and a place. And so for me to be able to experience that place helps me to understand the place better. I think, you can hear someone's story, and you can I can do a Zoom, but it's just actually meeting someone face to face and being in the space is really helpful as well. And you get a much better sense of, a classroom and what goes on in the classroom by sitting in that space. So, so that's my aim. So, if there are people who are willing to share, then that's probably, that would be what's involved. It'd be sort of, me coming to visit you and just chatting about your experiences about STEM, and then a couple of follow-up interviews. The follow-up ones might be phone calls or Zoom.
Yeah. So I was just thinking there as well too, Jane, that like some teachers may not, see themselves as specialists. Like, the school themselves might not, title them as STEM teachers, but they could be just also, maybe they could be just doing technology or maths. Generally I've found myself that maths teachers do take on the technology role, and so there's an element of STEM there. You might have a separate science teacher. Are you interested in those sort of people as well? Like, being that sort of element of STEM, or
Yeah.
you're
So what I'm most interested in is finding classroom teachers. So people they're not a STEM specialist. It's just something that they're doing, and they don't have to be doing it every day in every class. It's like,
yeah
they might have, but maybe once or twice a year, they might do a project-based learning that's got that STEM flavor to it. So it's not someone who's doing it all the time. You don't have to be, I'm not really looking for specialists who are doing it every moment of every day. I'm looking for people who are trying to work out how to, are doing the hard work, trying to work out how to make this actually fit
yeah
into the learning that the students are doing. So it is probably somebody who is, teaching in the classroom and is trying to bring in a little bit more maths into their science, or trying to bring in, okay, well, we're teaching this digital technology stuff now. How can I use that with science, or how can I use that with maths? So people who are experimenting, that's great. And it's more that project-based learning. So if you think about what a STEM mindset is in the literature, often when people are talking about it, they're using the same sort. They're talking about inquiry-based and having that questioning mindset. They're talking about making real-world connections, and then really trying to develop those skills in the students. So sometimes we call them 21st century skills, but people say, we're already so far into that. So then people call them soft skills and say, but anyway, so like communication, collaboration, creativity, and critical thinking, like those skills, if you're trying to bring those things in to the way that you're teaching it, then that's what I'm looking for. And notice I'm saying trying, like I'm not looking for people. And I really think that the people who I am looking for are not the people who usually put their hand up for things. They're the people who think what I'm doing is not that special. And they're the ones that I actually want to hear the stories from, because I think as teachers, we really sometimes undervalue what we're doing. And we're kind of shy and going, all these other people are doing these amazing things, but they don't necessarily recognize that in themselves. So if you are someone who is in the classroom, just give it a go, and you maybe have tried some project-based learning, and maybe you're trying to work out how to make digital technologies fit better into your science, or how you can make some connections between science and maths, then you probably are the person that I'm looking for. So I'm not looking for people who are already presenting at conferences and stuff. I'm looking for the people with the real stories.
Yep. So for those people who do wish to participate, what are those, what are the things that, that you can tell them that, at the end of the study, what can they walk away with? What sort of tools and, mindset that you hope that they can walk away with, from participating in your study?
Yeah, well, I'm really hoping that it'll be affirming for people to sort of share their story, and to think about, this was really tough. When you look back and when you read the story that I put back together, is to go, I have come a long way, and I have worked really hard, and what I'm doing is valued by other people. Because I know teachers that I have worked with that I've, asked to present at conferences, usually they're like really reluctant because they don't think that what they're doing is that special. And every time I've dragged someone along with me to a conference and got them to present, they've been blown away by the response of other people to hearing their story, because people go, wow, what you're doing is really great. So I think that's what I'm hoping that the participants get out of it, is that sense of affirmation of, you've worked really hard and what you're doing is really good, and it might not be perfect, but you're doing like a really great thing for the kids in your classroom.
Okay. Have you had many, people, putting their hand up to participate in it? Or
Yeah, so I've had a few people. I'm only looking for a small number, because narrative inquiry is kind of it's kind of intense. There's a lot of data that I'll get, because I'll get a couple of hours worth of transcripts and other bits and pieces of people. So I'll have plenty of data to go through, even with a small number of participants. But really, so that I don't end up wasting my time or wasting a participant's time, I really want to make sure I've got the right people. So the first step would be to contact me, and then have a bit of a chat, so that we can sort of go, yes, that is the, yes, that is the kind of story that I'm looking for. and then working out when we can have that first meeting. So I do have a website that I have put together so that people can have a look and
absolutely
have a look more at, at what's involved, and all of the forms and the consent forms and things are linked there. And I've also made a short video that people can watch to sort of try to get a bit more of an understanding about the problem and what it is that I'm trying to do.
Yep.
So yes, if you are interested, then it's janebathem.com.au/research, and then you can have a look and see there's more information there. And really it's just a matter of contacting me so that then we can get started.
I was wondering, Jane, like, to give participants, potential participants an idea about what's been happening for you lately. Could you perhaps, have you had a chance to sort of interview any of your participants recently, and what sort of things have they been saying, that they've, that their journey has been, been like?
Yeah, well, so far I haven't started with any interviews yet. So I'm sort of just getting that. I've got a couple of people who I think, yes, they're probably going to be the right people. So it's just my next steps to contact them and to get some times linked up to do that. So, teachers are busy. So I think I've got one person who's quite keen to share their story, but they're on leave at the moment. So I'm just waiting for that. Yeah. And then there'll be people who are out of state that I'll have to organise when I can get down there. But I haven't had any stories yet, but I'm really excited to hear the stories of teachers, because I think that'll be, I'm hoping that we can find and think, well, what is it? Because I know as a lot of my role in the last few years has been supporting teachers to try to develop a more positive STEM mindset.
Yeah.
And I know, the government's put money into STEM. I know, schools have put money into getting experts in to try to help, or buying new equipment and stuff. But there's no point in throwing all this money and getting all these experts in if it's not actually working. So I really want to hear from the perspective of teachers who have actually gone through it, like, did that program even help? Or like, what was it about the program that helped, so that we can improve what it is that we're doing, and help to make more people feel more comfortable. Because ideally, everybody would be excited about teaching in general, but about teaching STEM. So
just another thought popped into my head. So you're looking for those who pretty much at all stages of STEM sort of mindset, STEM teaching. What about those who may have done that in the past, have maybe moved on, even like, would you be interested in those who maybe have retired recently, or just short sort of little stints at doing that sort of stuff? Would you be interested in those sort of participants?
I think anybody who's got the story to tell. I think ideally someone who's sort of just gotten over the bridge and it's not too far in their history, like in their history, will probably remember better some of those key things. So I guess if it's fresher in people's minds, then that's good. But if somebody, someone goes, oh, I've retired, so I've got time to talk to her about it, but I do remember what that was like, and I remember because because that's that anxiety around around it, or that aversion to the technology or whatever it was. Like, you might remember that time and then remember now, getting better and getting over that, and then thinking back to, well, what did actually help to do that. So so I guess if someone has retired, or they're no longer in the classroom, or they might have moved into that specialist role, they might also have that story. But I guess it depends. It's sort of, if it's fresher in people's minds, I think that'll be easier for them. But if someone does remember that crossing of the bridge, so really I'm looking for people who have managed to cross the bridge, but but they might not be they might not be a STEM specialist teacher, and
Yeah.
they might not see themselves as being a STEM teacher. It's just somebody who's got that STEM mindset and is actually giving it a go.
Yeah.
But if there's someone who, is now super confident, is traveling the world telling everyone else about STEM, but they remember the journey, then they're welcome to contact me as well.
Right. I just really want to, make sure that you get across, or don't leave anything out. So what, is there something that you would like to, to let potential participants know that will sort of, make them feel more comfortable with participating in your study and joining in?
Well, yeah, I think that the people that I'm looking for, as I said before, they're probably not super confident teachers who see themselves as STEM superstars. And so if you're thinking, I'm doing it, but am I good enough? You probably are good enough. I think because I think those teachers that really undersell themselves, because they're just so busy doing the hard work, and they often don't have time then to go to conferences and share their story because they're so busy just doing it. Like, they're the teachers that I want to hear from. So if you think, I'm doing it, but what I'm doing is not that special, then maybe what you're doing is actually really special and your story is worth hearing. So that's, and they're the teachers that I am really keen to hear from, is those ones that don't normally share their stories, because I think that they've been through that journey, and there's so many people who are back on the first side of the bridge and haven't been able to even get on board because they don't know how to take that first step, or they just haven't got the right mindset to be able to do that. So, and we want to better help get them across.
Yep.
So,
that's great. So do you have so you mentioned a website that you could, maybe direct people towards, or an email that for the people to contact you?
Okay, so the website is Jane Bathem, so it's almost all one word, so janebathem.com.au /research. If you Google positive STEM mindsets, I think my YouTube video does come up now. So especially if you put it with my name, then and then you can watch the video there. On that website, I've actually got a contact form so that you can contact me directly through there. Otherwise, you can contact me through the university. So I'll just try to make sure I get the right email address. So it's I'm just checking to see if there's a dot in that one. I don't normally email myself. Hold on. I should know my email address, don't I? I just end up with so many of them. Okay, so yes, so it's jane.bathem@usq.edu.au.
Okay, great. And one final question, Jane. This study sounds so interesting. I would love to sort of keep in contact with you and to when you're finished, to be able to find out what your study came up with, because I think it's just so important these days. Like, STEM is really continuing to be such a vital aspect of society. Everything that students in the future will come across, I'm sure, will involve a STEM aspect: technology, science, maths, engineering. They all connect. So, when you're finished, I'd love a copy of your research. and you know, also to, like, you know, well, while you're, you know, if you come up with any new sort of interesting things to do with that, with STEM, you know, love to have my way, and I'll put them on my website as well, to sort of, you know, help get your message across, you know, of educating those people that, you know, who might not be so comfortable with, you know, any aspect of STEM in the past or in the future or present. Get them over the line, across the bridge. That's
Yes.
the mission.
That's right. And I think because, you know, we want all students to have that really positive experience of STEM,
Yeah.
but we also want all teachers to have that too. It makes me really, you know, I get, you know, I have emails from pre-service teachers, like when I'm teaching at university, like just telling me how terrified they are of taking a subject about how to teach science, not even integrated with others, or how to, you know, or they're really worried about taking on the maths course because they've had such poor experiences themselves that they've got this anxiety. And I just, you know, want to be able to help people to overcome that, because we want all students to experience positive STEM experiences, but we want our teachers to have that too. So yeah, so they can feel that fun and excitement. And it's like, you know, to me, it's just what we can do with technology and what we can do with science. We can really change the world. We can make the world a better place. Like we can,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
yeah, and we all want to be part of that, even if our role in that is just inspiring children to really, you know, to be able to tap into that curiosity.
Yeah.
You know, little kids are always asking these questions, and as a teacher, to feel more confident about how you can take those ideas that the students have and then run with them and enjoy that journey, rather than feeling scared and feeling, you know, incompetent, or feeling however it is that, you know,
Yeah.
that they're feeling, is
Yeah.
to be feeling more positive about it.
Absolutely. I mean, you know, in the end, I think we are all learners in this area. Children, you know, students and teachers alike. So no matter how confident you may feel, you know, there's always new things to learn.
Yeah, very much so.
And
Yeah.
I mean, I think, you know, participating in the study will, you know, will be a great learning journey, you know, to sort of share those experiences, those learning experiences, you know, how, you know, one teacher, you know, was able to cross a bridge into the next phase of the journey. I think it'd be fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah. And hopefully it will help a whole bunch of other people too. So yeah, so it'll
Yeah.
be helpful for the participants, because I think, you know, celebrating your own journey and like, wow, you know, it was tough, but I got there. But then how can we use that information to go, well,
Yeah.
you know, how can we help other people get on board too,
Yep.
to share
Absolutely.
it? So yeah.
So, you know, if you're watching this and, you know, you want to be a participant, you know, please help Jane out. She's not, you said you're not looking for a huge numbers sort of thing. You know, but yeah, if you're willing to help out, you know, or you might even know someone who was a STEM or was teaching, you know, something, you know, to do with STEM, maths, technology, science, bit of engineering, perhaps. Yeah, put your hand up and let Jane know, and, you know, reach out, because the more, you know, she can get to the bottom of this, you know, the more she can share, you know, a lot of good things with others who can, you know, maybe help them get across the bridge.
Yeah, that's it. So we can all become more confident, and yeah, and make it like a really exciting learning experience for the children too.
Absolutely. After all, that's what we're doing it. That's who we're doing it for.
Yeah.
So thanks so much, Jane, for reaching out to me.
Yes, and thank you very much for your time today.
It's my absolute pleasure. Really is. She's such a wonderful person.
Oh, thank you.
And yeah, I wish you all your best for the study. And like I said, when you're done, send it to my ear. I'll be happy to post it out there and let people know, what they can do. This
Yeah.
is so important.
Yeah, and I'm hoping also, to be able to define what a STEM mindset is, so people can look at it and go, okay, that's something worth having, and then I work out how to get one. So yeah,
absolutely.
yep. Okay, well, thank
All
you
right.
very much.
Thanks, Jane, and I'll